Hello and welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast, the only podcast that guarantees your success when you implement its divine age-old teachings. We're into a discussion about trust in God and building that trust based on the things that we see around us, using our eyes, using our ears, using our brains to take the information that is available to us and analyze it so that we build a sense of awe. When you hear the information that is being shared, it should compel you. It compelled me 20 years ago. And by the time we're done with this, you will have done one of two things. Either agreed and thrown in the towel on your suspicions and understood that there is no way that any of the things I am telling you or that our sages have told us could have been done or achieved by anything other than a divine, perfect creator, or you're going to dig your heels in and remain stubbornly suspicious, in which case, good luck to you. At the end of the day, you're only accountable to yourself. Yesterday, we talked about circumcision. How is it possible that 3,500 years ago, and that for generations, Jews kept this tradition, this mitzvah of circumcising their child on the 8th day, during times where we knew it was a life risk? What we didn't know is that science behind it. What we didn't know is the concept of blood clotting and platelets and vitamin K. What we didn't know was that on the 8th day, that blood clotting agent spikes only on that day in a human being's life. No other day does that blood clotting ability spike to 110% of its average life capacity. We didn't know that 3,500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 50 years ago. These are all new discoveries. We also didn't know what we didn't even talk about yesterday, which is the fact that we were saved from so many diseases, from death and disease because of this thing called circumcision. And if you don't believe me, research circumcision and disease in Africa, and you will find a research study, many of them that were done, but specifically one that I read that was in Africa. And they saw regions of Africa that was plagued with illness, STDs and AIDS, and people were dying en masse because of these illnesses. And they still are in many regions. But what they found suspicious was that in a neighboring region in Africa, Northern Africa, for example, they found no traces of the same illnesses, or very, very few, almost none to speak of. How's that possible when they're neighboring on these regions where people are dying in an epidemic of AIDS and HIV and other STDs? How's that possible? And they researched very thoroughly, and the answer was circumcision. The differentiator between those who survived and those who didn't, those who were sick and those who weren't, was that those who were not sick, who maintained good health, were circumcised. Guys, they didn't know this 3,500 years ago. We're learning these things today, but still, we've kept true to that mitzvah despite persecution and despite the risk of being killed for it. Today, we talk about the food that we eat. The food that we eat, kosher food, is still scoffed at by so many Jews. I personally know Jews who won't go to a kosher restaurant, not because they don't like the restaurant, but because they will not eat kosher food. Jewish people. Let me share with you some insight about what the Torah tells us with regards to a kosher animal. If you want to know what animal is kosher in this world, if you're walking in the field and you want to figure out if this animal is a kosher animal or not that you've come across, two signs. You need to have two kosher witnesses, which, by the way, is the standard in Judaism. If you're in a courtroom and you need to bring witnesses to be able to convict somebody, you have to have two witnesses, and they need to be kosher. What are the kosher witnesses that we need to find in the animal that proves its kosher status? Number one, split hooves, meaning completely split. If you ever see a cow's hoof, which, just by the way, I'm addicted to these videos. There's multiple people who are hoof trimmers, and I don't know why. It appeals to me. I watch these guys trimming cows' hooves and dealing with all kinds of problems that these cows have when they step on nails and whatnot, and infections and that type of thing. And I watch these things because it interests me. But if you look at it, you'll see that there are two sides, two claws as they call them. Each claw is completely independent from the other. That's a split hoof. And the other sign is that they need to chew their cud, which means they have multiple compartments in their stomach where the food rests, then comes back up, gets chewed up again, and then gets digested. That is called chewing their cud. Now, God could have said in his Torah, to placate all the Jews when he gave us all these laws of what we should and shouldn't do so many thousands of years ago, it would have sufficed for him to say, listen, chew its cud and split hooves. If you find those two signs, it's a kosher animal. And we would have understood it very clearly. The Torah goes on, and God stretches out and puts his proverbial neck on the line and gives us some more information that was not necessary and that could have been the end of our religion. What was it that he gives us? The Torah tells us that you must be careful because there are 4 animals, specifically 4 animals, that will have one of these signs, but not the other. It will either have split hooves and not chew its cud, or it will chew its cud and not have split hooves. Be careful. And the Torah goes and gives us names, by name specifies those 4 animals. One of them is the camel. You may know that a camel chews its cud, but it does not have split hooves. It has a solid hoof. A hare, which chews its cud but doesn't have a hoof. A hyrax, which is of the same family of the hare, again, chews its cud, doesn't have a hoof. And the one that you all know and are very familiar with, the pig, which has split hooves but doesn't chew its cud. You have these 4 animals that God specifies in the Torah in writing, that these 4 animals are the ones that you need to be scared of and you need to be careful from because they may fool you. Why does God outline these 4? Because the implication here, my friends, is that if there was a 5th, if Moses and the Israelites turned the corner in a small desert strip of land 3,500 years ago, and when they turned that corner, they found the 5th animal, or the 6th, or the 10th, or the 20th, or even if we found them today in the year 2025 in some remote part of the world which we're still discovering today, then you know what would happen, my friends? The entirety of the Torah would come under question, because that would be the first mistake that was found in God's Torah, which means that there's going to be another one. And then another one after that. We don't know what's good and we don't know what's not good. A divine God who is perfect does not make these kinds of mistakes. That's why we know that our Torah is 100% divine, because it's perfect. It knows the past, present, and future. The only one who would stretch their neck out and giving over a religion to a group of people that they want to have follow them, the only time they would stretch their neck out is if they were 100% confident in what they were saying. How can somebody be so confident that they know every single creature on planet Earth that existed not only at the time, but that will exist today? And I want you to think about science, and I want you to think about all the scientists who would love nothing more than to disprove religion, than to disprove the Torah and Judaism. All they need to do is get crafty and put together some new hybrid in a petri dish or in a lab on a farm somewhere and figure out how to get that 5th animal. And do you know what happens? It all comes to a grinding halt. Science wins and religion loses. But you know what? It hasn't happened. And it's not going to happen. Do you know how I know it's not going to happen? Because it's all from the Creator. He who knows, and the only reason that he knows is because it's he who created and manages all of creation. Back then and today and tomorrow. Until the end of time, God will run this world, and therefore everything that he says will come to fruition. Bottom line, you want to be successful? He says to you, eat what I tell you to eat and you'll be successful. Do what I tell you to do and you'll be successful. If you listen to him and you listen to his decrees, you will only benefit. There is no losing when you're doing his work, my friends. He controls all of creation. Who else would you want at your back? Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust. Keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor Podcast. Thanks for listening.